What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're hanging out here, rigging up a couple rods, spooling up. I got no line on here, so I wanted to show you guys a couple of do's and don'ts when you're spooling up a new reel. Maybe you're just putting new line on, maybe it's for the first time. A couple things that I see the average fisherman, a couple mistakes I see them make, and it's affecting a couple things. It's affecting your casting distance, it's affecting your retrieve, your gear ratio, like how fast you're retrieving, and it's causing you to get more backlashes because of line twists. So I want to walk you through how I spool up a few different reels and just kind of hang out and get ready for a day of fishing, rigging up a few new rods. But if you guys are new to the channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We're dropping 3 videos a week right now, and all of it is good bass fishing content. You know, the goal of this channel is this right here, help you guys just catch more bass. And I love bringing you guys tips, tricks, little hacks, all sorts of cool things. And at the end of the day, I just want to help you guys catch some more bass. So hit that subscribe if you haven't already. But if you guys are ready, let's jump in, start spooling up a few rods, and walk you through the whole process. All right, I got my 1,000-yard spools of Seaguar here. You know, I'm gonna spool up some Tatsu, some Invisex, and then some braid on a spinning reel. I don't know if I can even show you guys this. This is, I don't think this has been released yet, but this is some new braid that's coming from Seaguar, and you're definitely gonna wanna have that. It is super thin, and it is legit. I've been testing it for about, I don't know, 6 months now, and it's all I want to throw. It is legit, and it is some good braid. But more on that coming soon. I don't know, we might get in trouble for showing you guys that, so hopefully we don't get yelled at too bad. But anyway, we are spooling up. So this is a 7/6 heavy rod right here. I'm planning on throwing a Carolina rig and a jig. So I have 2 of them right here. So I'm spooling up 20-pound Seaguar Tatsu. Now, there's a couple things here. First off, you want to make sure that spool spins whenever you're pulling the line off. You don't want it sitting upright like this and pulling that line off, because every time it comes off of there, it's adding a twist. So you want that spool to be winding or spinning as you're reeling up into your reel. So I always start with some fresh line. I run it all the way through the guides backwards. You know, I run it from the top all the way down to the reel. And some guys like to tie a knot, but for me, I just like running it right into one of the slots in the spool. If you don't have a slot in one of your spools, you may have to just loop it around and tie a knot, but I just like running it in one of those slots and then start winding slowly and allow that line to just wrap around itself, and then it's on there tight. It's not going anywhere. So once you get that started, I like to back up and just let that spool spin as I slowly wind it up. So that's mistake number 1 right there I see guys make, is they don't let their spool of line spin while they're spooling it up. They lay it flat and pull the line off the top, and that is adding a twist into your line every single rotation, and that's gonna affect your casting distance, and that's gonna affect, it's gonna cause you to backlash more because that line is so twisted up right off the bat. Now the next mistake I see people make is they don't fill their reel all the way up. So you see the end of the spool is right there. You want to bring that line just about to the end of the spool. So that is right about the end of the spool right there. And what that does is that allows you to have the proper gear ratio. So like this is an 8.1 gear ratio reel, and that is factored on a full spool of line. The smaller diameter of your spool of line, the less gear ratio you're gonna have. So you want that to be as full as possible. That way every rotation, it's picking up the proper amount of line. Otherwise, you're simply just not getting the gear ratio that you signed up for or of the reel that you're using. So mistake number 2, not filling your reel up all the way. All right, so we're spooled up. The next mistake I see guys make, and this one really bugs me personally when I used to do this, and I never could figure it out. And the only way I figured out how to stop this is to never wind your line back through this roller guide on your reel once it's spooled up. Once you wind this, if I wound this tag end all the way back into the reel, what happens is this tag end will get underneath a loop. And then you go to spool up your line again, and that tag end is basically tied a knot around your entire spool. So every time you pull it out, it is rubbing against the line. It's not coming off the spool as free as possible. It's not letting you cast as far. Now, you will make a cast and it'll pull that loop or that knot all the way down to the end of your cast, but every time you make another long cast, it's gonna hit that loop or that knot, and it's not gonna allow you to cast as far. So I will never let this line go back through my reel. If I'm done, if I don't want to bait on here, what I do is just tie a loop. So I'm not ready to rig this rod up. We're basically just gonna tie 2 overhand knots, pull that tight, and that creates a loop, and I'm gonna hook that on the reel handle just like that. And now that rod and reel is spooled up, ready to go, and it's ready as can be. I mean, all I gotta do is tie a bait on here. It's gonna cast perfect, it's gonna perform perfect, and just all around great setup with my line. So that one is dialed up. Now let's go to a spinning reel. I'll show you guys a little bit. It's a little bit different process for a spinning reel because you're putting braided line on. At least I like to use braid to a fluorocarbon leader on my spinning reels. So you're putting braid on, and you can't put braid directly onto this spool because it will slip. It won't grip itself on this spool. So you'll set the hook or you'll be pulling your drag, and it will just constantly be spinning on there and it won't grip. So you got to put a little bit of fluorocarbon on the spool first before you tie a knot to your braid. So all of my spinning reels are set up like this, and basically I have fluorocarbon, just a tiny bit of fluorocarbon, then braid. The braid is the main line, and there's a bunch of braid, and then it goes to fluorocarbon at the end. So what I'm doing here is just tying another loop, just like I tied for the handle of my rod when I was done. I just tie a little loop around my finger. Oop, drop that. So you're gonna wanna cut this tag end pretty short, just like that. And now I have a loop, just tied a loop. So what I'm gonna do is make a slip knot. So I'm just gonna run the line through the loop, okay? Like this. So then I'm gonna put this loop that I just created onto the spool of the reel. Now there's 2 ways to do this. So you can put it on this way or this way. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I get it wrong the first time, I feel like every time. So I put it on the wrong way there. See how it just slips? It's not gripping itself. So you're gonna take this off. I can never get this right on the first time, and I'm a professional fisherman. So now we put that on there, and you see when you wind on the spool, it grips against itself and it pulls that knot tight. It pulls it tighter against itself and it grips against that spool. So I'm gonna wanna wind up just a little bit of fluorocarbon. My spool's going everywhere. So I want just a little tiny bit of fluorocarbon, just enough to cover that surface of the spool, just like that. And now we're gonna cut this, and that is my backing for my braid. Okay, now let's get our spool of new braid. This is, like I said, this is some new stuff from Seaguar. It's called PEX 8, and it's gonna be available really soon. And it's definitely a must-have for all your finesse presentations. Got some cool colors. This is bright pink. So every 3 feet, the color changes. So it goes from pink to green. Every 3 feet, there is a green mark. So what that does is that helps you detect how deep your bait's going, and it gives you something to watch. Say you're fishing a wacky worm, you can watch for that color variation jump on top of the water. So it is it's a really cool color design, and I'm super impressed with this braid so far. All right, so I'm doing the same thing here. I'm going from the top to the bottom with my braided line. Let's spool him all the way down till we get to our backing. Okay, so we got that all spooled up. Let's grab our backing of fluorocarbon. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to connect these, but since this is going to be so far buried in the spool, I'm not really worried about this not holding. Like, I'm never going to be casting this out, and it's never going to be connected between me and a fish. So I basically lay the 2 lines together and just tie an overhand knot, and that connects those 2 just enough to wind into the spool, and you don't have to worry about anything. It's super simple. It's a small knot, and then you don't have to worry about a big knot in your spool catching whenever you are making a long cast. So let's get this pulled tight, backing way up away from you. All right, let's get this wound up. Okay, we got the knot in there. Now again, like I mentioned, you don't want this spool laying flat and that line peeling off like this. You want this to spin. So I got a perfect little slot right here in my Phoenix. We are going to put that spool right in there. And now we're going to fill her up. So this is, again, it's the same situation. You want to make sure you fill the spool all the way up. I always see people stop. They'll fill up their spinning reels about that much, and that is affecting your casting distance extremely on your spinning reels. You may not think it matters as much on the spinning reels, but it matters just as much as the bait casters for casting distance and just overall ease of use on your spinning reels. So we're gonna crank this up. I'm probably gonna use this whole spool of line because it's a very thin diameter. This is, what is the diameter on this? 0.165 millimeter diameter line. It's the equivalent of 18-pound. But we're gonna spool this all the way up, and then we are ready to go. So hopefully you guys learned something watching this video. Hopefully you guys weren't making these mistakes, but if you were, maybe I can help you correct them and help you guys have your equipment operating at maximum capacity. So we are getting pretty full here, and we haven't used the full spool of line just yet. All right, so the same thing as on the bait casters. You can see the edge of the spool is right there, and we are completely full right on there. So we are done. We are good to go. Now, I probably don't have enough on here to do another reel, but if this was a bigger spool reel, it would take the rest of this. Like, that's a 1000 series reel, so it's a pretty small spool, and it doesn't take up this full spool of braided line. But we are spooled up, ready to go, and now I'm going to tie my FG knot on here with some fluorocarbon, and I'm ready to go fishing. So hopefully you guys learned something. Like I said, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave me those likes and comments down below, and we'll see you guys next time.